Hello, and welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today we're going to be doing another D&D 3.5 Prestige class review, and we're going to be looking at the Blackguard Prestige class, one of the originals from the Dungeon Master's Guide. Blackguards are the epitome of evil. They embody cruelty and malice and underhanded tactics, and essentially a Blackguard is an anti-paladin, as it is one of those prestige classes that lets you trade in paladin levels for Blackguard levels, or gain special abilities for being a fallen paladin who becomes a Blackguard. But you don't have to be a paladin to become a Blackguard. If you want to become a Blackguard, you're going to need to be of any evil alignment, not just lawful evil. You're going to need a +6 base attack bonus, 5 ranks in Hide, 2 ranks in Knowledge Religion, and then Power Attack, Cleave, and Improved Sunder for feats. You also must have made peaceful contact with an evil outsider who is summoned by you or someone else. And so that means you have to either talk to a demon, had a conversation with a demon, or petted a fiendish dire rat or something like that. Whatever it is, don't really worry too much about that one, because the Dungeon Master will tend to find a way to enable you to get that special requirement, or you can take the initiative and figure it out yourself. An important thing to mention when it comes to mentioning the Dungeon Master here is that a lot of times this is a prestige class for NPCs, in which case that special feature would just happen, completely off camera from the campaign, so to speak. And another thing to keep in mind here is that we have to look at this prestige class both as an NPC prestige class, which is what it will usually be, as well as a player character one, which will happen a lot less often, but it could. I've been in campaigns that had good aligned characters, campaigns that had evil aligned characters, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're just running around, burning villages and committing wanton cruelty. You can have evil characters that are working despite their nature for the greater good. If there's a world-ending apocalypse coming, the evil characters probably want to stop that from happening too. Not always, but in a lot of cases. So we'll look at this from both ends while we go through this prestige class. And that's something that I probably should do more of in these reviews, because a lot of prestige classes are intended for NPCs. One that comes to mind just off the top of my head is the Stone Death Assassin, which I believe I've already looked at, which is for goblinoid assassins that wish to prey on dwarves. That's not commonly a prestige class for player characters. So anyway, let's look at the Blackguard some more here. So for the requirements, needing 5 ranks in Hide is really the most restrictive part in some ways, because it means that if you want to come into this as a paladin, you're going to need to be at least a 7th level paladin, which isn't too much of a stretch, but technically you only need to be 6th level to get into this. A ranger could get into it without much issue, about as easily a level earlier. And a fighter rogue, like a fighter 5 rogue 2, could get into this no problem, but that's again going to be a 7th level character. So the ranger is, ironically, seems to be the quickest way into this. A cleric with the trickery domain could get into this after level 8, but I don't really see that being a common thing, as the Blackguard does not progress your existing spellcasting. It's got its own spell progression. The 3 feats is also a big one, and if you're okay giving up almost all of your feats as a non-fighter or non-human character, then that's okay. A lot of people won't be. So a paladin might have to take like a couple levels of fighter to get the requisite feats to become a Blackguard if they want to, which will kind of mess up their ability to trade in paladin levels or paladin features for Blackguard ones. So I would rate the requirements for this prestige class as moderately restrictive. You do have to jump through some hoops to get into this. It's not as easily accessible as one might think. A lot of people think of the Blackguard as a stand-up, like leader of evil, a marshal of evil. The Blackguard is really, a paladin that uses, an anti-paladin that uses very underhanded tactics like sneak attack and poison. Again, very much embodying the cruel and uncaring nature of evil and all of that. So, again, moderately restrictive. The 3 feats are quite a lot, but for a lot of characters, it won't be too much of an issue. So what do you get as a Blackguard? Well, you get a D10 hit die, full base attack bonus, and a good fortitude save, which is pretty similar to a fighter. You're going to get 2 plus intelligence modifier skill points per level, and you're going to have a pretty similar skill list to the Paladin, except you're also going to get Hide as one of your class skills. So that can be helpful, although a lot of Blackguards are wearing heavy armor. You do get proficiency with simple and martial weapons, as well as all types of armor and with shields. So if you came into this and you somehow weren't proficient with all of those, maybe you are the rare cleric coming into this, or maybe a ranger that wants to wear heavy armor, then there you go. But odds are that's going to just overlap with your paladin or fighter proficiencies. So what do you get as features from the Blackguard? Well, you're going to get an aura of evil, which is going to be equal in power to your class level plus your cleric level, if any. Interesting, it includes cleric there. And this feature is really, I mean, it's more of a downside if you want to be strict about it. I mean, not having an aura of an alignment is technically the best option, just for giving you the ability to evade any kind of notice or anything like that. But it's an important thematic element. You also get Detect Good at will as a spell-like ability. Again, pretty similar to what paladins get. And you get poison use. Blackguards never risk accidentally poisoning themselves when applying poison to a blade. Now, if only poison was good. And here's the first point where we have to examine player character versus non-player character. An NPC can carry as much poison around as they want, really. I mean, the Dungeon Master should be generally sticking to the wealth by level for NPCs, but they're only going to be in one fight usually. So if they want to sink a lot of their gold into poisons to make their weapon extra nasty, then they can do that. A player character needs to think a lot more carefully. There are no rules, at least that I know of, that will allow you to harvest poison from dead monsters. A lot of Dungeon Masters, I mean, it could go either way. A lot of Dungeon Masters will try to let you, if they're aware of how bad poison is generally as an option. Although, ironically, the most powerful poisons are the ones that come straight from monsters, like Monster Centipede, Venom, and all that. But if you're not going to have that happening, then the poison use feature is going to be useless in a lot of cases. This applies to Assassin, too. It's another class that's meant for NPCs, and so the poison use feature is a lot more helpful to them. But then again, for a lot of Dungeon Masters, they're probably going to ignore that 5% chance of poisoning themselves anyway and just have this guy show up with a poison blade. Poison use is a cool idea. It would be cool if poisons were better in 3.5 and more useful, but unfortunately, they're not. At level 2, you're going to get Dark Blessing. This lets you apply your Charisma modifier, if positive, as a bonus on all saving throws. This is like Divine Grace for Paladins. Unfortunately, they don't stack. They would stack, except if you are a Paladin who becomes a Blackguard, you lose all those features, and you would gain this one eventually instead. So because of that, you're not going to get to double dip here. That would be kind of cool in some ways. It would definitely make evil more powerful than good. Not sure what kind of message that's sending there, but this at least allows you to regain that feature. And it does say that you are going to want to have a good charisma to play a Blackguard either way. So if you're coming into this as a ranger for some reason, well, good luck, because you're going to need good wisdom for your ranger stuff and good charisma for your Blackguard stuff. Not very good. And even as a fighter, this is kind of a difficult thing to ask for. So not a great feature unless, again, you are a paladin, which is going to be a lot of characters that become Blackguards, to be fair, but just something to keep in mind in case you're not. You're also going to gain Smite Good once per day. This works like Smite Evil, except it's against good. Smiting is not a bad thing, but it is a once per day damage boost that you might miss with. So while you are going to be having a full base attack bonus with a Blackguard character, and thus be unlikely to miss, that also means you can't afford to power attack as much. And so this is just sort of one of those features it's all right, but it's not going to really draw you to want to take this prestige class. Also, now is a good time to mention spellcasting. You get effectively Ranger or Paladin spellcasting starting right away. And you're going to get, 0 spells per day. You only get a bonus spell at first level, but at second level you will get 1. And feeding back into the multi-ability dependence I was talking about before, Blackguards, while they get bonuses to their saving throws based off their charisma, their spell casting is powered by wisdom, because again, this is an anti-paladin, and paladins are destined to suffer in D&D 3.5. Apparently this is part of some eventual holy reward, but unfortunately I've never really seen it. And while I don't have a huge amount of love for Pathfinder, I will say that Pathfinder did improve the Paladin quite a bit. I find it hard to argue against that. But you do get spells as a Blackguard, and you actually not only get the spells that are listed here, but you do get spells from a lot of supplements. For some reason, they felt like supporting the Blackguard more than they felt like supporting the Duskblade, although that's another argument, and there's actually a fair reason for that. At level 3, you're going to get Aura of Despair. This is going to be really your only unique feature that you get from being a Blackguard, other than, I mean, the ones that are effectively inversions of paladin abilities. And Aura of Despair lets you radiate a malign aura that causes enemies within 10 feet to take a -2 penalty on all saving throws. This is interesting. This is all saving throws, so this can be great for if you are using a poisoned weapon in melee. And this seems to be like one of the few abilities that does this. There's no saving throw against this, so you can just impose this, and it actually makes you a fairly good melee debuffer. And that has some potential interesting applications. As for whether it's worth taking 3 levels in this prestige class and taking all these different feats, I don't really think so. But if you're already playing a fighter rogue and you're evil aligned and you want to help out the party wizard or something like that, then it definitely could be good. Also at 3rd level, you're going to get the ability to command undead. You command undead as would a cleric of 2 levels lower. If this is just using your Blackguard level, then that is pretty terrible. I'm going to be charitable and guess that this is just your character level as a cleric of 2 levels lower. If not, then that is really quite weak. Commanding undead is very strong, but it's a situational type of thing. And if you're running into challenge rating appropriate undead, then you're going to find it difficult to actually put this to use. That said, in the right circumstances, it can be very powerful. So that is definitely one worth keeping an eye on. At level 4, you get sneak attack plus 1d6. And this works like sneak attack does. If you catch someone flat-footed or flanking, you do an extra d6. You might have an extra d6 already just from taking levels in rogue to fulfill the skill requirements for this prestige class. If you don't, then this will be the start of it. Flanking is always good to get into, and as a frontliner, you'll often find yourself flanking with an ally, so a little bit of extra damage is a good thing. But keep in mind that sneak attack doesn't apply to all monsters. In fact, it seems like about 1/3 of monsters are immune to sneak attack. That's a rough guess, rough estimation, but I think it's a good rule of thumb. So if you want to be really, if you don't want to think about the situational, you could think this about like an extra d4 of damage on average, which is still good, but again, sneak attack is only okay for a character like this. At level 5, you're going to get Fiendish Servant as well as Smite Good a 2nd time per day, plus access to 3rd level spells if you've got a good enough wisdom, which means enough of a wisdom bonus of +3 or more to get the bonus spell, not just a 13 or more to be able to cast them at all. And the Fiendish Servant is quite similar to a familiar, except you can get a horse or pony, as well as a bat, cat, dire rat, raven, or toad, like the similar typical familiar options, and all of them will be fiendish, so they will get a little bit of extra benefit there. They're going to get that empathic link, they're going to get the improved evasion, share saving throws, share spells, and at some point they'll be able to speak with the Blackguard. And this is for character level 12th or lower, those basic features, but later on they'll get stuff like Blood Bond, where if they see you being threatened, they get +2 in their attacks, and similar stuff like that. And then at character level 19th or higher, they're going to get spell resistance equal to your Blackguard's level +5. And again, I hope that's character level, because if not, that's going to be quite shameful. So looking back at the main class, after you get that Fiendish Servant, which is a decent feature, and the Smite Good 2 per day, you're going to get a dead level at level 6, which is pretty shameful. At level 7, you get sneak attack plus 2d6, and then 2 more dead levels past at 8th and 9th, and you're going to get a 10th level sneak attack plus 3d6 and Smite Good 3 times per day. And by that point, of course, you'll have access to all of your spells. You're going to get 2 1st level, 2 2nd level, 2 3rd level, and 1 4th level spell per day by default. And the Blackguard spell list is all right, but again, it's very similar to that of the Paladin. So it's okay, but it's not enough to carry a class by itself. You are going to get Summon Monster 1 through 4. You're going to get Cure Light as well as Inflict Light Wounds, and then all of those going further on up the list. You're going to get Bull's Strength and Eagle Splendor. No Owl's Wisdom to improve your spell casting, but I suppose that makes sense. It will improve your saving throws, at least with that Eagle's Splendor. You can get Contagion, Deeper Darkness. Protection from Energy is a very important spell to have, so props for that one being involved. And then 4th level gets you Freedom of Movement, which is pretty typical. The Cure and Inflict Critical. The Summon Monster 4 is already mentioned. And it will get you Poison, which is nice, but given that you're probably going to be like level 17 at this point, probably not going to come in very handy. It's the sort of spell casting that you'll use on lower level enemies to make yourself look impressive, but when it comes to actually sinking your teeth into a higher level foe, your best option most of the time is going to be using a two-handed weapon and power attacking. But of course you'll be missing out on a lot of features of, like, if you'd gone like full fighter, for example, or if you'd multi-classed more into rogue for better sneak attack progression to deal out more damage there with maybe 2-weapon fighting or something like that. Looking at the Blackguard overall, it seems like it wants to be an assassin type character, an anti-paladin type character, and an undead commander type of character all at the same time. Basically an evil cleric, an evil fighter, and an evil rogue. And those really don't combine that well altogether. If they were going to, there would need to be a lot more density of features here. The sneak attack progression would need to be a lot higher if you wanted to lean more in the rogue direction. If they wanted to be an undead commander, they would need to have an aura that would be buffing their undead, making it easier for them to raise dead, maybe giving them animate dead as a spell-like ability, which would be interesting, but that really doesn't seem like what the Blackguard is. The poison use, I mean, again, they do have the Aura of Despair to help that poison actually sink in, but it's not enough to make poison a viable option. And this applies to both NPC enemies and player characters that happen to be evilly aligned. A player character playing this, I mean, he'll be able to function. He'll have that full base attack bonus. He'll be able to swing, a great sword or something like that. Or maybe get by with 2-weapon fighting, some rogue levels, and a little bit of extra damage from sneak attack. But the sneak attack progression here is awful. One thing we haven't looked at yet is the options for Fallen Paladin, because that's kind of a whole nother matter. But I think, as you'll see, even then it really doesn't make for that great of a character. So it says Fallen Paladins. Blackguards have levels in Paladin. When they enter the class, gain extra abilities. Gains all the following abilities that apply according to the number of Paladin levels you have. So this is what you get at 1st level. Well, one of them is what you get at 5th level. So if you have 1 to 2 levels of Paladin when you come into this, for some reason, you get Smite Good once per day. This is an extra use. This is on top of when you get the ability at 2nd level. So you get Smite Good once per day at 1st and Smite Good 2 per day at level 2. So that's nice. If you had 3 or 4 levels of Paladin, you get Lay on Hands, Cure Yourself or your Fiendish Servant of damage equal to your Charisma bonus. Again, same as Lay on Hands. And again, this is stuff that you already had as a Paladin, so you're not really gaining anything. You're just taking back what you lost from falling from your Paladin Oath. 5 or 6 levels gives you sneak attack damage plus 1d6 on top of what you already get. So you get eventually up to 4d6 sneak attack, but getting that at a character level of like 17 is honestly laughable. You also get Smite Good 2 per day, so you get extra uses of Smite Good, which makes it a little more viable of an option. It's level 7 to 8, you get Fiendish Summoning. This will let you use a Summon Monster 1 spell per day to call forth an evil creature, and your caster level is double the Blackguard's class level. That's a pretty awful feature, because by that point, I mean, yeah, you'll get to keep a Summon Monster creature around for longer, but it's a Summon Monster 1 creature, so it's not going to be doing very much. If you have 9 or 10 levels, you get an Undead Companion. So on top of the Fiendish Servant at 5th level, you also get a medium-sized skeleton or zombie as a companion. It cannot be turned or rebuked and gains all of these special bonuses that a Fiendish Servant gets when you level up. And you get Smite Good 3 per day. And then if you have 11 or more levels, which is a little bit odd because it's a 10-level prestige class, a Fallen Paladin of this stature immediately gains a Blackguard level for each level of Paladin he trades in. So you can't quite trade in all of them unless you are reaching epic level, because to do so you would have to go beyond that 10th level and violate the rules of not being able to go more than 10 levels in a prestige class until you are epic level. So that's a little bit weird. So you'd be like a Paladin 1, Blackguard 10. The character level, the character doesn't change in this case with the loss in paladin levels. The character no longer gains as many extra abilities for being a fallen paladin. Okay, that makes sense. So the Blackguard is a little bit stronger as a fallen paladin. They can get an extra fiendish servant, which is nice, a medium-sized skeleton or zombie that can fight a little bit in melee. I mean, they're going to start out with 2 bonus hit dice, so that's kind of risky. I mean, they could just be killed outright, and then you've lost your companion. So it's good for having something around to carry your stuff out of a dungeon, maybe, but it's not going to be that useful in combat. The fiendish summoning is just kind of a joke. The extra sneak attack is nice, but it's not changing anything. The extra smite good ability is helpful, and the lay on hands is nice too, but really, again, if you're walking this path as a paladin, you're just taking back what you had lost before. So looking at the Blackguard, we see a prestige class with some fairly restrictive requirements, its own unique spell casting that essentially cuts off anyone that was already a spellcaster from wanting to advance in it. And it's got 3 dead levels and nothing creative to fill them. In fact, it doesn't have very many creative features at all. It just kind of tacks on sneak attack, poison use from assassin, and then just some inverted paladin features, which, to be fair, is about what you would expect from being a Blackguard. But even as an anti-paladin, it's really hard to want to take levels in this. Playing something like an evil-aligned knight feels a lot better than playing a Blackguard. They don't even get like a good will save or anything like that, which would be pretty essential for an enemy leader type character who you don't want to fall victim to the first confusion or hold person or hold monster spell that the party wizard unleashes. So both as an NPC and as a player character, the Blackguard really just kind of falls short. Overall, I would give the Blackguard 3 stars for concept, but only 2 stars for execution. It definitely could use leaning in an actual direction here. Maybe either more uses of Smite Good or some kind of passive ongoing ability. While it does have that creative restriction of trying its best to align itself as the antithesis of the Paladin, it definitely could make itself either easier to access with looser prerequisites, or at least be less inclined toward being an anti-paladin. As is, it doesn't make a very good evil mastermind. The Command Undead does give it some potential, but that's really about it. The Smite Good is probably its best feature, functioning as an NPC opponent, lets them do some extra damage to the player characters, wield some unholy power. Some of the spells are pretty good, but that's really about all that there is to say about the Blackguard. Really, anything you could apply to the Paladin, negatively speaking, can be applied to the Blackguard, with the additional sort of aggravating factor that you have to qualify to get in to be a Blackguard, as well as the fact that you are gaining these features at a much higher level than the Paladin does, and thus they are less useful. So overall, Blackguard could definitely use some work. If you have any suggestions for how you would improve the Blackguard, please let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time here on 3.5 Archive. Thanks for watching.